All right, we will go ahead and get started for the day. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us. So as we went over last week, we had our Arts and Sciences fee review presentation with Dean Chakrabarty. So thank you so much for coming again today, Dean Chakrabarty. Today's session will be focused on our question and answer session. And so Michael and I had some questions that we received and we sent over to the College of Arts and Sciences for review. And so they'll be answering those questions, and then any other questions that you all have today, we'll be going through that process similar to how we did the College of Business. So with that, Dean Chakrabarty, I'll throw it to you if you have like any opening remarks, or if you just want to jump right in, either one.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, so this is an important process, as you know, so I'm happy to be back. And thanks for sharing the questions with us beforehand, because just like you are involved in your academic work, your questions are also very involved. So it's good that you've given us some time to prepare for that. So I'm going to go over question one. So I need to give you some background. I have a PowerPoint, but not everything can be really written down there. So the online fee process was done in a very different way. There was no student involvement and there was no student participation in there. The way it was done is that we need to submit a proposal to the provost, and Provost Mason approved that part. What happened last year as a recalibration of all the fees and simplification, that online fee with some sort of a weighting factor, how many student credit hours we do face-to-face versus how many student credit hours we do online, that was recalibrated to put, I believe, 70 cents per hour, student credit hour. Yeah. And so that's the part. So the way that we are using it is that we estimate that this will generate about, depending on how many student credit hours we ultimately make in spring, will be about 133,000 or so. And the way that we spend it, and we have been spending it, is mainly on one instructional designer, Deborah Goins. She has been a great addition to the college. The college really never had any position like this before the online fee. And she helps faculty on several aspects, both online and face-to-face. She works with instructors to improve the quality of the offerings, as you can understand. That became particularly important during the COVID 18 months, but it's becoming more and more important. We're seeing a lot of growth in online. And so working with faculty to make sure that the offerings are high quality. It's not that, you convert your old yellow notes into a PDF and you just post it and becomes an online class. This is not the way we like to do this, right? Not everyone agrees on that. So Deborah plays a very major role. She came from IT to us. She was expert on Canvas. And so she has been helping faculty with Canvas aspects of online classes and general Canvas aspects, even in face-to-face classes. The other thing she does is a big part of our responsibility to make sure that the offerings, the online offerings, are ADA accessible. And so she has been working with faculty to make our courses accessible to students with disabilities. And this is an important aspect of what we offer. And as we offer more and more online classes, which goes beyond Kansas State, it's even more important to attract new students, because they want to be included, and they want to be in a way that the courses are accessible to them. And so that's what Deborah does. So this is her job. And what we have listed there is about her salary plus benefits. And so, approximately it adds up. And then we have an accountant that we must have, because we need someone to allocate this fees money to the department and make sure that these are spent correctly. This is impossible to do by Dean Culbertson. And to make sure that the categories of spending the money actually done correctly. Because if there is no accountant in charge of it, then after the money is distributed, there's no way of checking that what the intention of the dean's office is actually spent by the department. So 22 departments, all sorts of complications. So that's where the online money is actually go. And also our accountant, Ashley, she also spent some time on, we offer some faculty overloads. If you're familiar with the budget model, you will know that if we hire an instructor to teach a course, then there's also a charge for the head count. And so we are trying to reduce that aspect, and by offering faculty to teach some classes, not a whole lot, some classes in the overload fashion. We are mainly keeping it for tenured faculty. We want to make sure that our untenured faculty work for scholarly work and get tenure. So it's only open to tenured faculty, and they teach, and sometimes these are online classes that rather than hiring a faculty, hiring an instructor, just pay a faculty overload by course, which is cheaper, saves head count, it's very, very efficient and very effective, and faculty loves that. They haven't had a salary increase in many years, so they like this opportunity to earn a bit of extra money. And so Ashley takes care of that also. So it's a multiple aspects of our job that this money goes to. I strongly believe both of these are just absolutely necessary to run an efficient and accurate program with fees money. So that was the question one. Anything on this before we move to question two?
Yeah. What did your accounting staff look like before this fee? Did you have other accountants?
Before the fees?
Yeah, before this position.
This is a new accountant in the college.
So how many did you have before?
The college has I don't know, maybe close to about 20 for the whole. So this is a new hire at that point. So this is several years ago that we made this hire. And now Ashley is a new person. We have a lot of turnover in that position because of various reasons, salary, opportunities in other places, and yeah.
Any further questions on question one? All right.
Okay, move to question two. The question two was asking kind of a distribution for 5-year average of expense revenue ratios, and we put that for various departments. One is to be careful with analyzing this data. I'll come to this in a second. I will point out that the real outlier, biochem, molecular biophysics, because there a large sum goes to supplement their GTAs. Because what happened in the past is that they were getting half of their GTA money from agricultural experimental station in ag, and then they decided that they will not support GTAs, they only support GRAs. So when these students were left pretty much half of their salaries, and you cannot hire a biochemistry graduate student with $6,000, it's just not possible. So a big chunk of money going there. We are actually working with biochem and our GU budget to bring that over a few years. We have a plan to bring that back to the normal range. So that's a real outlier for a very special reason. Other than that, you can see the distribution, some above, some below. And more important though, I think in this process is, in this discussion is the process that we go through. So the process is that the three parts to the process. One is the GTA. we figure out what is the median stipend 2016 range for each department separately. And since these are all different numbers, the money that goes to department will be different. And this, if we not include biochemistry, which is an outlier, the numbers varies from maybe 15% to 30%, something like that. That's the spread of the GTS supplement that it looks like. And then we have the advisors, and the advisors are scaled very differently. Advisors are scaled by number of measures. So typical advisors take care of 250 to 300 measures, depending on all of them are in the same department or they are split between multiple departments. Then we give them less number of students because it's very complicated to advise students from 2 or 3 different departments. So that's the process. The third process is where the departments get money for their instructional support, what we call the lab, studio, and various other support for their instructional mission. And that process is very different. We don't give them the money. They have to write down, they have to apply, and they give us the list of things that they need to run their department. And typically that number comes with over $1 million ask every year. And we typically have 300 to 400,000 to give them in the current stage. And this is why we strongly believe that a slight increase in the fees is necessary, but that's a separate issue. And so that process actually starts with the department. So the variations that you see department to department is not designed from top down. It's actually a bottom up process that the department head send us the request, what they need to run, and then we cannot fulfill that. And some of the requests that comes are very, very detailed requests. I mean, they're going to spend this much money on learning assistants, this much money on lab supplies, this much money on it's a very detailed list. So this process is actually very nicely done by Dean Culbertson, who takes care of it and works with the department heads. Then the part that is kept at the dean's office, that goes for research support for undergraduates, travel, graduate student travel, and all that. Those are done by applications by the students given some deadline and run by Dean Culbertson directly. So these are the processes that one needs to be aware of. So the variation sometimes comes from number of majors, number of student credit hour, but also what the heads want to run, need to run their programs. The variations are multiple layers. And that's why I wanted to add all that in our discussion.
Any questions about that? Sounds good. We'll move on to question 3. Oh, part 2 of question.
Oh, yeah. So this is a point. This is an important point we put in is that, as you know, we have 22 departments, and there is a study called Delaware study, which studied the cost of instruction ratio, it's called. So if the average overall instruction is 1, then the numbers can vary from 0.8 to 1.3, maybe sometimes even more. And the cost of instruction to create a student credit hour in a department is not the same, as you know very well, right? To hire a faculty in engineering, business school, in biochemistry will be very, very large compared to hiring someone in humanities. And at the same time, the support that you need to run the lab-based course is much more than just a regular classroom setting. So that's what these Delaware studies are. So you can also normalize by that. And we look at this cost of instruction to decide how much money should go there. Not every dollar is the same when used to create a student credit hour or student success. And so that's what in Culbertson wanted to point out, that we do look at all these things. I mean, this is done in a very professional manner, looking at multiple aspects of student success and cost of instruction. Okay, so that's 2A. It's not 2 really, it's 2A. Yes.
Awesome.
Can you go back to the back slide real quick? Interesting. Can you explain just a little bit more on the normalized version? Military science and aerospace studies dropped here to 0. That seems like a really big shift, especially like, can you talk us through just a little bit more like what that means and why aerospace and military science are at 0 for that?
It's not 0, it's just not available.
Well, so what happens is they don't cost the college anything.
Okay,
So when you normalize that, they're 0.
right.
So I mean, it's not like they're getting any less money, but there's
Yeah.
no way, you can't divide by 0 essentially.
That's what I was
So-
thinking. So why do they cost so much less for the college? Are
They
funded elsewhere?
cost nothing because these are federal programs.
Cool.
Yeah, so those faculty there are paid by the US, the Department of Defense.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
Interesting.
So these are ROTC programs. This is not truly military science. These are the ROTC programs, but the agreement between K-State and ROTC is that they will cover the instructional salaries and benefits, but we need to provide them with some office assistant and also cost of instruction when they offer a class. So it's really a good deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of you are involved there. The students involved in ROTC are some of our very strong students mainly because they learn the discipline. You know, at this stage, discipline becomes more important than innate intelligence. I know this very well from my college days. So.
Awesome. Any other questions about question 2? All right.
All right, question 2. This is just the chart that I plotted there. So there's nothing new there. And question 3 was the GTA salary information. So this is the whole chart of that. I didn't plot that. So it tells you that how many GTAs are there in every department, and it also varies. I believe our largest is math now. Biology has some budget cuts. They used to be very large. Math is 37, econ is 24, English is 33, chemistry is 37. So it varies from various departments. So because of that also, because of the number difference also, the departmental money that goes to supporting from the fee is also different. So that's a source of the variation in this program. You will see very few. You will not see, for example, philosophy in this because they don't have a graduate program. So that's why you would not see that. So, philosophy's intake of the fees money will be less because there is no GTA there to support. So these are the things that create the different distribution for different departments. So we just listed that. And there's some historical things here. I mean, historically, biochem GTAs were paid 6,000 from 6,000 or 7,000 from the college and 6,000 and 7,000 from AES, and you just cannot hire someone with that. Geology also, it's very low. The base stipend is $8,000. I mean, you really cannot have any geologist to come in and work for their masters here with typically less than 18,000, 20,000. That's the minimum end of it. So that also is a variation from department to department. If you look at some of the numbers, the previous numbers, if you look at English, for example, used to be $10,000. Just imagine $10,000 to go through a full year. And then that increase is not as large it's about 26%, but that brought us to the median for English GTAs at that point. But still, I mean, I like to do better that everyone reaches a kind of a 18,000 kind of range. 18,000 for 12 months is $1,500 a month. You can barely after paying rent and all expense, you can barely survive on that. So that's our goal, to increase some of the balances back with your GU, but for that we need a little bit of increase in enrollment, right? Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, that geology percent supplementation number is really high, even higher than biochemistry's. Is there any, like biochem, you kind of had the reasoning for that of because the Ag Research Station pulled their support. Is there a reasoning, like what's the history and context behind the geology having such a high percent supplementation?
The geology was that it was very low and their graduate program was not doing very well. And so we had to put some money there to bring it to a normalized range to balance that, Yeah, they had very few things that increased. We attracted some very good graduate students after that. And so things rolled for a while. Now we are behind again. That's one of the departments that very much off track because the kind of salaries you get in oil and gas industry is much higher. So folks are not going there. So to attract those graduate students, you need to pay them more. That's actually still quite off from the market value.
And then does geology bring in a lot more income for the fee? Why didn't we see them being a high outlier like biochemistry on the expense to revenue ratios?
Okay, so geology has a large number of introductory courses that they bring in some money, which biochem doesn't. So biochem, again, is historical reason. Biochem was in the College of Ag, mostly treated as a research. Yes, long time ago. Yes. Now this is before anyone in this room probably born.
Yeah. So and we're also paying for part of an advisor in biochem, but not in geology. So that throws that number up a little bit more too.
That is true.
And the lab supplies in biochem cost more than they do in geology. Geology, you can just reuse the rocks. You can't reuse the DNA. So there are issues like that. So, but I will say, over the pandemic, the biology department head wrote 2 grants to the National Science Foundation and got about $500,000 to provide materials for students to learn online much better. So they put a big effort in. So these are things that we didn't have to pay for those out of the fees because the national, the government paid for those things. So that's good. So people, I like to tell people that most faculty get paid only 9 months. And you have to support the rest of themselves the other 3 months. And to do that, they have to be very entrepreneurial. So they're actually like business people. And they go out and write grants to bring in money to pay for their salaries and to support their graduate students and undergraduates and things like that. And so they were very entrepreneurial when it came to improving and helping student learning over the pandemic by doing that. So
good for them. Was that the department head who took on the burden of writing those departmental grants?
So department head and two instructors in the department, Dr. Brzezicki, and then the department head was Dr. Kempton and Dr. LaCroix. So yes.
Great. Awesome. Any other questions on what's on the screen right now?
And
go ahead, Laura.
So there are a lot of GTAs that are funded by this fee, and there are also a lot of GTAs paying into this fee. So does that seem a little cannibalistic for the salary that they're getting on them paying into their own salary?
Yeah, so the graduate programs are designed in a very strange way that when you pay stipend, that the students who are taking the classes, right, looks like they're paying for the classes being paid, but that's the money comes to us and then we pay the stipend, so it becomes pretty wash. So without the graduate students paying at least a bit into the pot, it's very difficult to distribute that for the whole college. So that's why we're charging them a little bit. They're not paying any tuition, right? Most of them are, the GTAs are not paying any tuition. We're covering that with this.
Yeah, and it's kind of a like university level issue that they get paid $12,000 and then pay another $200 in fees to this college and that college, and some of that does end up going back to their own salary.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. This is not a good situation. And that our target is to bring all the GTAs to a minimum acceptable level. And I think that's about $1,500 a month minimum. Otherwise, you cannot survive in this town. And we have a plan to get there.
The other thing to point out is that 95% of the fee is generated from the undergraduate tuition, scholarship hours, only 5% from the graduate students. So most of that fee is being brought in at the undergraduate level. So.
Yeah.
What is the rate of graduate student fees per credit hour? Is it a per credit hour fee?
Yeah.
This fee is the same no
Same
matter
amount.
what level you're taking. Now, there are other fees maybe for graduate students.
Okay.
I don't know versus Unhuman, because you got student activity fees and other types of
Right.
university fees. But in
This
terms
one
of
is flat.
fee,
Cool.
this is just flat for all SCH.
Yeah.
As far as we can tell, Max, there are very few limited examples of a additional fee. Like food science, for example, has like a $500 graduate student program fee, but those are pretty few and far.
Right.
But I'd be surprised if 95% comes from undergraduates. I mean, all of these GTAs are also at some point taking classes in the college. Like math GTAs would take math classes, especially as like masters, or even if they're PhDs, they take 60 units of classes. So 95% coming from undergraduates seems a little on the high side.
So let's do a little math. So here, if you add them, you will probably get about 350. And the college has about 4,500 majors. So that's a factor of 10. It's not quite 595, but there are also students taking from outside of the college, taking our introductory classes. So those are all undergraduate. If you put that, then you come to about 95.
Well, not only that too, that the normal graduate student load is fewer hours per semester.
That
than
is also true.
the graduate. So it turns out to about 200,000 undergraduate SCH, just around 10,000 graduate SCH is generated, say last year.
Yeah, he knows the exact numbers. I can do estimate.
All right.
All right, question 4 actually been answered. Question 4 was about a particular department. How much was given to the music, theater, and dance? That's already in the list. So if you go back and look at MTD in there, you can see that it's about 75%. So it's a little bit on the low side, and that's because not because they have less number of GTAs or student travel and research money, but the request that comes from the department head is usually on the less side than comes from chemistry, physics, or biochemistry, for that. So that's the reason they are at about 75% of what they comes in. Yeah, that's the range. We have 75 to maybe 1.3. Biochem out. Biochem is a truly outlier, and that will be fixed when 3 years after, when I come here, or someone else will come here, that will be pushed down.
The pandemic has put that plan a little behind.
Yeah, we already working on a plan on it.
Is that fixed? Is that planned by decreasing those stipends, by increasing revenue generation? What is the mechanism of fixing?
Putting in more GU money and also reducing the number of GTAs that's supported by all these things and putting more on research side. Yeah, so it's a mixture of many things.
Cool, thank you.
The issue that one needs to keep in mind is that if someone is a GTA, you cannot put them in a research grant. That goes against federal law, right? That they should be working for the grant. You cannot even support their travel. If you're a GTA, you cannot use grant money for their travel to a research conference unless it's in summer. So you need to be careful with the federal laws. So that's pretty much what I have. So I just went over that. What are the methods that we use to allocate? It's very detailed and thoughtful and equitable process that we go through.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Oh,
Did you skip over MTD?
no, MTD was on there.
Oh, answered any questions. Okay, sweet.
Yeah, and that was right up here.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for answering those questions,
Oh,
Dean Chakrabarty.
absolutely.
I want to go ahead and open the floor. Outside of the questions that were answered today, are there any other questions that any committee member has for Dean Chakrabarty?
I guess I'll go. So on slide number 5 from last week, so is your goal to keep arts and sciences the lowest fee, or do you plan on increasing that?
We are not doing something thinking that whether it will be lowest or highest or anything like that, but we have two things that we want to balance. My first slide, if you remember, is to make education accessible as a land grant mission, and also to be able to provide student success. And so looking at all the money that we need to make it, that's our target. And rather than artificially saying we're going to be lowest or highest or anything like that. But the increase is not going to be very large. The increase would be just to balance the budget. So that's what we are thinking.
Okay.
I think the estimate probably going to be in the $22 to $25 range that we'll have. And I don't know what the lowest number is today. So it might be lowest, it may be a little bit above lowest. I don't know, but that's not what we are thinking.
Okay.
All right, Max, can you speak a little bit about the alternate process for the online fee? What was that process?
Oh, so the online fee was that when we started offering, so remember before this budget model, the online fees were done separately. So I used to get a budget, GU budget, and then the online fees, the money that we made, a portion was kept by Central, a portion would come back, and then it will go back to the faculty who's teaching it by some percentage that was preset. Okay, I think it's 81 cents per credit or something like that. So the problem is that to balance all these things, we needed two things. One is that online classes those days were really Wild West. Anyone could come up with something, put something in a copy and put something as a PDF file that anyone can download and becomes an online class. We wanted to break that and make sure that that we provide quality instruction. And the second is that the accounting process was also very messy because there's no one at the dean's office who could do that. So, and that without some check, some faculty members are predominantly teaching the large lecture classes online because they're getting paid 81 cents for their own good. But what it was doing is that the revenue that's coming to Central, whatever budget model you use, money has to come to some place before it gets distributed. But if the money is siphoned out to faculty member who is getting a salary anyway, large sum, then we will see some depletion to the common general pool. And so the thought was that we will get some money, but we will make sure that courses are quality courses are accounted well, and there will be a check back and how much a faculty member can make. And so all these things are put together, and if you write a proposal to the Provost Mason it was, pointing out these things, then she will approve that. It was a very informal process at that point. I don't believe it included anything like that. A general discussion was enough to do that. And I actually wrote something, I don't remember when, it was 2016, I think early in my career here, that I worked with the global campus to put it together. So Dean Sue Mays was there. She actually supported that. So we had that process, at least some check, but there was no broad involvement like this at that. But now this is now included in the total student fee, right?
So in the old versus the new, that amount didn't change, you just eliminated the kickouts to the faculty members teaching it, or what was the amount change?
Right, so what changed now is that the tuition model now doesn't discriminate between whether it's online or, so we get the whole budget, right?
Yeah.
But we also want to provide some incentive to faculty with some guidance, right? So that they can take a risk to start a new class, that they can teach an extra class where hiring an instructor may be very costly. You cannot just hire 10% of an instructor, right? So we provide those things, and that's part of the job that the accountant does. And Scott Tenona, our other associate dean, works on this overload. They have to apply to Scott. Scott will look into their overall teaching load, that it's truly an overload. It's not that you're putting your regular teaching responsibility and calling it overload. So he checks all that to make sure. And then we have a maximum amount that will pay typically about $5,000 per course. You cannot hire an instructor like that. So I think it's a very good deal for the university. And faculty members feel good. They're teaching an extra class, and so they might get some money there to support them, and you know, that's that.
Mhm.
Right. Any other questions out there?
Go for it. I'd love to ask more about the departmental grant writing process. And so right now you were saying that's mostly on the department head. Department heads are, at least from my experience, also really busy. They still teach classes, they still have their own research. Is there an incentive structure for them to apply for these departmental level grants? It seems like, yeah, who does that burden fall on? And is there further opportunities to have more of those things?
Yeah,
happen?
so you are talking about the instructional grants, right? I mean, not the research grants.
Right, yeah,
right?
the instructional, yes.
The instructional grants, the department get all the money. So the overhead of those grants, any grant that you write, the federal agencies will give you some what they call indirect costs, right? So indirect costs, overhead, SRO, you go by many names, but the money that comes to, about 43% comes back to the college. And to provide that incentive, college gives only 9, and 34 goes back to the department.
Mhm.
So many departments with that. So, you know, 39 out of 43 is about 20%. So 80% goes back to the department. And departments then have different structures. Some departments keep that as a department heads level and then distribute wherever the greatest need is,
Mhm.
you know, or they can, in some department, they give some money directly to the faculty and keep the rest in the central pool. But college doesn't get involved in that. We just say, you're getting 80%, you figure it out. It's your money. You made this money, the college didn't. So keep 80%. And we need to keep a little bit of money, because oftentimes there are grants that faculty members would write that has a mandatory matching component. And where is that money going to come from? This is where college comes in, to put that mandatory match from the money we keep.
What are some of the things that are available to be funded through those grants? You mentioned a little bit about the two ones that the biology.
Yeah,
department.
so both the biology studio 198 and the physics studio 213, 214 were done by NSF grants. So these are all NSF grants that actually did get all the, NSF will not give money or NIH will not give money for facilities. You have to pay money to get the rooms done and all, buy table and chair, but they will give money to hire instructors in the beginning when you're testing out. They will give money for computers, they'll give money for softwares and various other equipments. The lab equipment these days are automated oftentimes. You know, you have a receptor that studies, reads this and all that, and computer reads that. These are the way typically any lab is done. NSF will give money for those. And both the studios actually came from NSF support. And there are other opportunities, I'll be very honest with you. And what happens is that our faculty is stretched thin. You know, we have budget cuts after budget cuts for multiple years, and faculty have been asked to do so much. And so maybe, you know, when we get out of the COVID bottom, these activities will take place even more. But it's a good point.
I'm talking about the physics education research group.
Yeah. Yeah, so physics has a physics education research group also, and the college pays for a small, the 2 people group. And they do research into how students understand physics for that. But it can be extended to other departments also, any department actually. You know, how students understand or study poetry could be a very good subject to study, right? I mean, it's a very complex process. And so whether it's poetry, whether it's chemistry, you can have an educational physics or chemistry or English, whatever department that you can think of. So there are great opportunities in here. And NSF is very supportive of creating strong educational research. So, but remains to be done.
And some of our donors, and like for the Chapman Center for Rural
Right.
Studies, support undergraduate research too, outside of what the fee structure is.
And in the cancer center,
Yes.
pretty much fully supported by donor money.
How many of those like departmental level instructional grants have been received in the past, say, like 3 years?
That number I cannot give you offhand. Chris, do you know?
I think the geology ones.
Geology was the last 3 years, maybe that's the only one.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you go rewind back, maybe last 10, 15 years, then there will be many departments who have used that. Physics has done that. But physics gets the physics education research grants every year. So we're excluding that. Mostly for instruction. Biology got that. I think math also received some money. So math actually had some private money and matched that with it. So there are departments who have done that. By the way, I should add that, so math has a budget reduction like any other department for their GTAs. They lost 8 GTAs, and one of our donors, very supportive of the college. She has been putting money, private money, for 3 years to support 8 more GTAs. You will not see that in your results here, but creating a large, robust research program brings in this private money.
That's great. Yeah, I was going to ask what like philanthropy partnership efforts are underway. How does the college work to garner new donors and garner private money?
College does a lot of support to our foundation team. So I personally meet with them every month to see where the opportunities. We have 2 different approaches. One is to do a kind of a data approach, looking at the cluster of donors that I should travel to. Mostly turns out to be San Francisco area, LA area, but also Kansas City sometimes, Dallas, Houston, Denver, the traditional Kansas State alum bases. But we also make plan on seeing how we can bring in donors, what are our major need, and also how do we connect to the donor's passion. This is very different from grant writing, very, very different. Grant writing, you say how good you are, but when you talk to a donor, you need to match the passion of the donor with your needs. So it's a delicate thing to do.
All right, are there any further questions out there?
I hate to, sorry, I do have one more so far. What's the who approves like increases or changes in the graduate student fees?
That we do not do. This is where we put in, and it's supported by. You know how
You mean their
Grad-
take home, or you mean like?
Well, I mean, this fee
Like
is
campus
just
fees.
a
Oh,
student
they do
credit hour
exactly.
fee,
Yeah.
so it includes everything.
It-
But
it
there may be
includes-
There's
separate
no-
graduate
Right.
fees.
There's no separate graduate student fees.
Yeah.
Undergraduate, it's all this,
Oh.
it's a per flat credit hour rate fee
Okay.
that's applied to either grad credit hour production or undergrad credit hour
Yeah.
production.
Okay.
Good, thanks, Ethan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
because we haven't done that to
Yep.
go to graduate council or anything. So this takes care of that automatically. Yeah.
That's something that we've been diving into earlier this week as well, so,
Yeah.
awesome. All right,
All right. Thanks, everyone.
awesome, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much for coming. to Chapter
Thanks for
Party.
the great discussion and giving me a chance to come back and answer your questions.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
And it's purple.
And thank you as well, Dean Culbertson, thank you for coming.
Yeah, Chris Culbertson is the main architect, he really does all this. This is involved work to make sure that it's equitable, accessible, and working with so many loose ends. It's not easy. So he does a great job.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks, Chris.
awesome, thank you all very much,
you
we
all.
appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
All righty, so with that, now that we've gotten the chance to ask any questions that we may have, I kind of want to do kind of like last time with the College of Business, a little straw poll on how we feel about potentially making a decision today. So if we want to do like a quick thumbs up, sideways down, whatever scale you want to use there, if you're comfortable with making a decision today. Cool. It looks like we are looking good around the room. So similar to last time, we'll go ahead and just go around the room if everyone just wants to share a little bit of what they thought about the presentation, questions in general, then we will go ahead and do that. So Max, you want to?
Sorry, no, not to start off on thoughts, just I was gonna ask, can you send us the slides from today's
Yes,
stuff?
I can do that. Oops.
You also put it in the OneDrive.
Yeah, I will get that done. Let me.
So that's why I put it in a minute. I'm not gonna write every.
Yeah, it'll just take a minute for me to do this, but we can go ahead and like start with thoughts if that's okay while I get this going. Let's see. Adrian,
I
we'll
can
start with you.
start. I thought he did a good job. He got a lot of questions thrown at him and he did a good job answering everything with your Adam, and I thought it was well prepared and well thought out and answered all the questions. What do I have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna echo you. Everything was great. from my end. Really didn't notice anything outstanding, so.
And he seems passionate about everything he talks about, so.
Mhm.
I liked how they were progressing towards the future. I mean, you see that and wanting to raise the graduate teaching stipend or whatever, just trying to help further along people wanting to become, going into grad school, doing stuff like that. So I like that.
I felt that the decisions that he made in his presentation last week and today with how he talked through the choices that they had made were really well supported. And I thought that they made a lot of sense in their decision-making process, and definitely helped me in understanding that whole process from our perspective.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of thought into the future, which is nice. This fee, I think, is pretty clear cut. It makes sense what they're doing with it. I'm just concerned about, since K-Board has been clear on not giving any extra, like, budget, whatever it is, what are they gonna do when they most likely don't get that raise? Because they're on that one side, 50% of their classroom, they're not funding. So that's my main concern, but that's not really about this, so.
I was honestly kind of surprised on the amount of GTAs they had. It was very surprising. I didn't really realize how much they had. And I can tell that he's very passionate on keeping the GTAs very, just making sure that they have a kind of just a salary that they can kind of live off of. And I can tell you, he's very passionate about that. That's one thing that I really noticed about the presentation.
I guess I'm just surprised at how large and like diverse the college is, and wonder if that's maybe a flaw in the system of trying to figure out how to fund everything, but you have some that get a lot of funding and some that don't get any funding, and you can't put all the people that don't get funding together, but that's a frustrating situation to be in. And yeah, I guess in contrast to the business school from before, I don't think the business school has any, like, or if very many at all, graduate students that do research and teaching. So I mean, I guess it makes sense, and I wonder if this is more or less what we'd see in a lot of the other colleges, that there is a lot of reliance on graduate student teaching, which I also think is a flaw of the university system, that instead of like hiring adjunct professors, they hire GTAs and pay them like 8 to 15 to, it sounded like $37,000 a year to teach those classes. So I guess that's an interesting perspective that I don't know, that's a university problem, but that's not their problem. So I didn't see any major discrepancies on what they receive the funds and then spend them on. I thought it was all done with student needs in mind, and could defend that. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I can also kind of echo the concern on, to me, just personally, it's quite a stretch. The two main philosophies beyond the fee are ensuring student success and maintaining land-grant university affordability. The vast majority of the fee goes to funding the GTAs. And I just thought of this question as I was formulating this, but asking about, what review program there is, or like incentive structure to have quality teaching practices at the core of some of those GTAs' work, because without that, I see that as a big stretch. I don't really see a direct correlation between just hiring GTAs and ensuring student success. I can see the train of logic, like he did explain all of that. To me, it seems like it's quite a couple of steps removed without some other steps to ensure some of that. And it also feels, don't get me wrong, like I am applying to grad schools right now. I'm all for, like, those stipends are real in my life, and I will be a graduate student, hopefully. But even with me going into that position, it feels like a stretch to me to be using the vast majority of undergraduate money, 95% of those stipends being funded from the undergrads, and all of that going just to like the graduate student stipends without it having any direct like measurabilities or deliverables on ensuring student success. That's a stretch to me. I don't have solutions for that. I don't know where else those positions get funded because I do know how important those are. I thought I saw some hope. I liked those questions about getting departmental grants written, instructional grants written, and ensuring some more donor support. That's really great. That's a big strength that business had with the last presentation was all of the industry support and private money they had flowing in. But I also I don't see an incentive structure really I see the department heads, at least for biochemistry, and they're in research and classes and everything. And I don't see a strong incentive structure to actively be pursuing the departmental instructional level grants when they're already writing grants for their own research. And so I could see a lot of room for improvement. I think it sounds like they're not getting very many instructional level grants. I think that could be a big opportunity. So I see that as a better alternative to funding the things like maybe these GTAs. That sounds like instructional grant material and also the new equipment that they haven't been able to fund recently. So I see those
like they said, though,
opportunities.
when they get grants for research, part of that does help pay for faculty salary.
Yeah.
There is like an overhead. So even in applying for like their research grants, it's kind of a double-handed thing where you get money to do research, but also you get money to get paid.
Mhm. So those were just kind of my concerns and everything. But again, I don't have particular solutions. What we're discussing is like the continuance of the fee. It's always been kind of my opinion, like, how are you going to ever disprove, like, yes, it goes to ensuring student success and maintaining land grant university affordability. I'm not sure there's ever a way to really like say they're not doing that, but those were just like my thoughts on the overall presentation and maybe opportunities, things that are more relevant for the new fee proposal, maybe in the spring.
I will say, I guess from my perspective, not being in the college directly, but obviously having to take a lot of those like entry level courses, that is like the direct tie-in with students is who is teaching that course. And that's pretty difficult to just disprove either way. But I think there definitely should be a little bit of rise to concern as far as how that structure is set up, and maybe more of those positions get shifted over to some type of other funding source. I don't know what that looks like or what other opportunities exist there, because I would almost rather the main focus be, and this is subjective and me just thinking, having that main focus be more on equipment and facilities and upgrading the things that students are going to be using in the labs. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. This is the behemoth of K-State. I mean, the largest college with the most tie-in. And on top of that, I would reckon to say that all of us at some point in our college career have taken at least one, if not a lot, of courses that are outside of our college in arts and sciences. And so, I think that's a really interesting piece too, is that the decisions that are made about arts and sciences really truly do impact a lot of students across the entire university. And I just continue to find it interesting how we saw business and their focus was on career development, on hiring more faculty in order to meet the needs of students and reduce those class sizes and create a better student experience. And then here on the flip side, that this money was earmarked to that student success and improving the student experience. And part of that goes to paying more for graduate students who were overworked and underpaid, in my opinion. So yeah, I always think it's just interesting to see how each college approaches it and was assigned to do that task. And I believe that arts and sciences did do that task, and it was really interesting to see all the breakdown. So that's my wrap up thoughts.
Yeah. John, do you have any thoughts?
I would say that I really respect how how well he explained things for how nuanced and wide the college is. And that the student success shows through, even though in areas like with the graduate students being funded about 90% of undergrad, that is pretty whack. That the overall outcome is rather good.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, John. Yeah. I mean, my thoughts have pretty much been, I mean, when you get like 10, 11 people speaking before you, your thoughts are usually echoed pretty well. So, yeah, I would say overall pretty good presentation, really interesting structure, different things that perked my interest, but overall, I would say my thoughts were generally positive on the fee there. So with that, unless there is any more discussion, which if there is, that's totally fine. I've heard generally positive remarks, so I'll seek a motion to approve the fee review for the College of Arts and Sciences. Bryce.
I move we approve the fee review for arts and sciences.
All right, is there a second for that?
Sorry.
Awesome. So it has been moved and seconded to approve that fee review. Cameron, whenever you're ready, if you want to take us on a roll call vote.
Okay. Michael,
Yes.
Blake,
Yes.
Bryce,
Yes.
Carson. Gone. Adrian,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Jacob,
Yep.
Ben,
Yes.
Jaren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
by a vote of
Do you vote?
No.
So they didn't call me.
9-0. It passes.
All righty. Thank you very much for that, Cameron, and thank you all. That concludes our final fee review for the year. So we have reviewed all the fees that were up for the cycle. And so now we move on with the second phase of Tuition Fee Strategies Committee, which, as I mentioned on the agenda, deals with college fee proposals. And so last week was the deadline for when new fee proposals were due to the provost. Provost Tabor received 2 of these fee requests, one from the College of Arts and Sciences, as we learned the past couple of weeks, and then another one from the College of Business. So funny enough, the 2 that we reviewed this year are the 2 that we'll get to see again in the spring. So
A head full of knowledge about them.
yeah, for sure. So the way that process will work, Michael and I have already created the college tuition committee applications to be sent out for at-large members. The membership of those committees, so there will be one committee formed for arts and sciences, one committee formed for business, and they will specifically look at the merits of the fee. Should this fee increase happen? Or like in the case of the College of Business, is the technology fee needed? Is it going towards the right things? Those type of questions. Those will be asked in the college tuition committee. That will be composed of all of the student senators from each college, as well as 3 more at-large members than number of student senators in the college. So 11 at-large for business, 16 for arts and sciences, as well as the TFSC rep from that college. So Adrian and Alex, you all will get to be a part of a few more committee meetings in the coming, once we get back from break. So as soon as those CTC meetings happen, that'll be about a 3 to 5 week process to review each of those. Those recommendations from the college tuition committee will then come to us. We will essentially provide that oversight role again, ensuring that the correct process was followed to propose a new fee. At that point in time, we'll review that, vote on that, and send that to the university president, and then finally to the Kansas Board of Regents. And so that is what that process will look like. But as far as the fall goes, this is actually our last meeting for the fall. So you all get an early Thanksgiving break in that case. Are there any questions though about that process in particular, or what the spring will look like? I did forget to mention, additionally, in the spring, we will have some meetings regarding the tuition proposal from the university. So we will have that to look forward to, as well as the outcome of the college tuition committees. But any questions out there about what the future holds?
So after the CTC does their review, then the TFSC also does a review, is that?
Correct. So
Okay,
they'll,
okay.
they'll kind of review the CTC process.
Yeah, okay. I just can
yeah.
tell if we got involved after, or if it was like CTC did it and then only these people were.
So it'll probably be a mix of some individuals who their colleges aren't putting forward a proposal, will be watching as the CTC does their work.
Okay.
And then TFSC will essentially like approve and get the final blessing on all of that to make sure that it was followed. And we're still working out the details with a group that large, because these are going to be pretty massive committees. Blake and I are kind of talking to essentially have kind of a co-chairing slash either like chair, vice chair type of thing. So Adrian and Alex, that would likely be the position, since this would be your colleges, that you two would both step into that co-chair or vice chair type role. Yeah, also, let's see, I had another thought.
Hey, Blake or Michael, just to clarify kind of what the process is, I just want to make sure I heard it right. If, assuming the CTC approves the fee request and the process is followed, that's it in terms of the merits of the fee and deciding whether it should or shouldn't be forwarded on to the president, right?
Correct.
So the TFSC, their role is to make sure that all the steps that are supposed to be undertaken in the college are followed, and whatever results they have for that fee vote, that's the final stage on the merits of the fee.
Correct.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
So the CTC judges the should, and we judge the, if you want to call it did. So like, did the college did the college receive student input? Did the college follow the appropriate steps? Those type of things. So the similar advisory role of our committee is like a trust but verify type of approach is what it'll look like in the spring from us.
And I think a lot of now, of course, I don't know why that policy was directly made, but my assumptions are that you're really getting buy-in from the people who will be paying that fee versus me being an ag student trying to make a decision on a college business fee. Well, hell, I don't care if they pay an extra $20 or $40. I mean,
I think about that,
yeah. No, I'm kidding. But also on the flip side of that, I might be strongly opposed to raising any fee at all. But that's not my specific college, and someone in that college might really see a lot of value in that. So.
And that's exactly why that process was created in that way, to give more of the authority for a fee and the decision and whether a fee should be increased to the students in that college. Because what had potentially occurred or had occurred was without that process, it just came to the TFSC, and you might have somebody that's just totally against any kind of fee increase, just on the merit of a fee increase, swaying the votes of this group and totally neglecting then the desires of the students in that college who have gone through the due diligence of reviewing and understanding how this could benefit students in the future in particular. So that's why that process is like that now.
You guys know if there's a precedent of like fees being shut down in the CTC or
Engineering?
I believe engineering did.
And then so the student said no. And then it still got pushed forward to KBOR. And I can't remember if it was Mark Hutton or one of the regents basically was like, well, I'm going to listen to the students, and then the rest of the regents kind of followed suit on that.
I can't remember if it was Hutton or not.
Yeah.
I was in the room, but I don't remember which region it was.
Very interesting.
But that speaks to the importance and the value that KBOR places on the student input into this discussion. And so, that's frankly why K-State has probably one of the most involved student processes. Other institutions don't have this level of involvement of their students. That's because of the value that's placed upon it.
Are the CTC committees representative of, like, there are some grad students on there that are?
Yeah, so it's specifically designed, we are like in the application, we are supposed to ask and select representatives from like different classes of like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior,
Okay.
grad. If they're in like multicultural student organizations, if they're in the college's like college council equivalent organization. And then we also threw on there any other student organizations that they're involved in within the college. And then just other, general type questions as well. That's like the info that will be gathered, and we'll make a point to select like a diverse group, whether it's age-wise or any other factor.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Alex.
So the application will be basically, so it's for the college business, how many people will it be?
Yeah, so it'll be 8 student senators, which we're currently at 6, but hopefully we'll get up to 8. And then 11 at-large students as well as you.
Okay, so basically, any member part of the college, or any student that's a part of the college of business and is in any of those groups can apply to be in this position.
Correct, yeah, or even not included in those groups. We want all perspectives to be represented. We just want to make sure that it isn't like, are you involved in a student organization on campus? Because lots of people will say yes to that. So we want to know within that group, where are you involved at, so that we can get.
Is that application going to be sent out?
Yeah, so our goal is to send that to the deans tomorrow to help them distribute it, because they have a little bit better ways of distributing it specifically to those students who can apply, because we can send it out to all students, but obviously if like we're looking for business and arts and sciences students, so health and human sciences students, for example, sorry, Jaren, we don't necessarily need to have them applying for these. So that'll be sent out, and our goal is to have those selections made hopefully before winter break.
Yeah, who chairs the CTCs? Is that you? Do they elect their own chair?
So there's no official legislated process for it in like the bylaws. I think our goal, like we mentioned, is kind of to have if you want to call it co-chair or like chair, vice chair type of strategy, where like Michael and myself will be like one of the leaders of the meeting, as well as Adrian and Alex for that.
Cool. I think that leads in. Yeah, second question.
Yeah.
Have we made any headway on figuring out where those regulations are housed? Who controls those?
So there is an email that I have not opened yet because I received it very recently, that is like working to get TFSC put on like the university's committee listing webpage, and all of those things. And then I know Michael and myself want to make it a point to really buff the governing documents on like what exactly the role of TFSC is and how our processes work, so that transitions happen a little bit easier and it's just more defined in that way. Right.
A lot of that will be during break as well, where we put together those transitions.
What, you don't have time before the semester's over?
Yeah, I'm swimming in all 3 times.
I'm totally teasing. That sounds like a totally reasonable thing.
That's all good. But yes, they are gonna add that to the university handbook as a standing committee, along with the previous university, I think it was university handbook, right? That's where they were putting it. Yeah, university committee handbook. It had student senate committees as communications committee, student affairs committee, university allocations committee, college council allocations committee, senate operations, government relations, and the privilege fee. Well, one of those got renamed. The other 4 or 5 of those don't exist anymore.
2 of those are remaining.
Have still stands. So
Yikes.
yeah, but that'll be really good. As far as like publishing guidelines, I think our best bet is to go through the statutes and like really just figure out how to concisely put all of that there. So cool.
Awesome. So yeah, that is what we're looking at in the spring. We'll definitely be in contact about next steps with you all. But you can probably expect a little bit of radio silence as we head into break, so that everyone can have a nice break. So any final questions before?
When do our meetings start?
Yeah, so our plan is to have like a essentially what do you call it, orientation type of meeting, the first or second week back from winter break. And then we'll actually start those true CTC meetings shortly after.
After
So-
winter break?
Yeah, so call it February, is when those will probably start. All right, anything else? Seeing none, thank you all so much for your time and hard work this semester, and have a great break. Feel free to stop by, offices or anywhere else. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just end the meeting. Bye, everyone. Go Cats. Go Cats.